Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode on ABAP on cloud training. In our last episode, we have given a conclosure to our display like Fury application. In our today's session, we will go ahead and talk about creating the transactional capability to our CDS model using RESTful ABAP programming model. So by far in the class, we have generated a display like Fury app preview, which was showcasing me a search capability to do an F4 help, also the capability to showcase the labels of instead of IDs on the UI, drill down capability and displaying an object page. There was also a question in the last class, Anubhav, is there any way we can disable and hide the object page? Basically, we don't want to navigate to the details section. How this can be achieved? So I've already found out one information regarding the same on UI5 SDK. I'm sure you all know UI5 SDK, ui5.sap.com, and this is where you can see the type of application which we are developing is Fury Elements. Under the Fury Elements, we have something called Fury Element of configuring navigation section. Under that, internal navigation. So here there is a possibility which I could see to remove the object page. So you can see here when we are creating our our list report application system is creating these pages. You see my object page first level, my object pages, the sub level pages. So if you want to hide or remove the navigation, then you need to remove this entire block. And this is what also clearly written here: navigation to detail page, eliminate this block if no navigation is needed. So this is how you can remove the navigation to the object page. Now the question comes, can we do it here in the preview? No, we cannot do it in a preview because we are currently just doing a preview. So if I go back to our last section where we're creating this unmanaged application for the travel, you see this is a service definition and we have then the service binding for travel. So here we are just currently doing a preview. So it's a preview which is generated by system automatically. That is the reason you cannot do that here, because you don't have opportunity to change the code in the manifest.json, right? But when we will create the Fury application in the web IDE in our next class, at that part of time you can go to web IDE and then do that change. Yes, exactly. So since we are doing just a preview here, we can't do it because it's a system generated preview. But once we reach to web IDE and build a Fury app, which is deployable unit, which is the shippable unit to the end user, that is the time I will show you how to achieve that. Okay, so let's wait for the next session where we will build a Fury app using web IDE. But as you can already see, the clear documentation says that we need to remove this piece of block completely from the manifest JSON to remove the entire navigation to the detail page. So this is all there on the UI5 SDK. You just have to go and find out the right settings. So now the coming to the next step is now we will be adding transactional capabilities. So basically transactional capability means I want to add create, read, update and delete. So by far we have learned that we have something called, I'll go back to a RESTful programming picture. This picture is so important. So we have developed our business objects, then we developed our business object project projections basically. And in this projection on top, we created a service definition, service binding, and then a Fury app preview was visible to us. So this was the complete layering for creating your RESTful program for the first time. But now comes a very important step, the transactional capabilities. Now to understand or do the transactional capabilities, you have to now go ahead and make changes to your data modeling layer. As you can see, the step number 2 and step number 3, which we did not yet do, okay, in RESTful ABAP. So these are all the 2 steps which we have to process. Now before we go and talk about these 2 steps, let's understand first of all the basic definition of what is a business object. Okay, that, and after we understand the business object, we need to also understand how the business object is relating to the transactional capability. Now many of you, the moment the word business object comes, you may start thinking, is it BOPF framework? So guys, BOPF is not used here. This is not BOPF. RESTful ABAP programming is a completely new paradigm. Okay, so there is no concept of BOPF here. It is something which the RESTful ABAP language or the RESTful ABAP compiler layer will take care. So we don't have to worry about BOPF framework. We're not using any BOPF. It's a completely new syntax, completely new behavior, but just the name is called business object. So very often, even initially, I used to get confused. Is it doing some kind of BOPF? Not at all. This is just a concept wise called business object. And what is a business object? Business object is nothing but it's your CDS view. Okay, it is a tree data structure which represents your CDS view. So let me just go back to one of the chapter where I already discussed what is a business object in context of RESTful ABAP programming. I didn't discuss that. Okay, so let me just note down here. Yeah, here we discussed already. So business object here is a node inside a tree data structure. It's a node, not node. Okay, so business object is a node inside a tree data structure which represented by root keyword at the CDS view level. This is needed if you want to add transactional capability. Can you see this statement? So in RESTful ABAP programming, if you ever want to add transactional capability, you must need to mark your BO. You need to tell the system which is your root node of the tree, and that's your business object. So without defining a business object, we cannot proceed to add transactional capabilities in context of RESTful programming model. So you see, this is needed only if we want to add transactions. So by far we just did a display like app. We didn't do any kind of transaction capability like create, read, update, delete, right? We didn't do that. So if you want to achieve that, you must add the very first thing as root keyword at CDS view level. That will mark then that CDS view as a business object in context of RESTful ABAP programming. Very important step. So let's go back and understand we what else we will be doing. We will also be creating a behavior definition. So what is a behavior definition? This is also known as business object behavior definition. Okay, or in simple terms, behavior definition or business object behavior definition, both are same, interchangeably used in the industry. So now the very first, how do you do this behavior definition? So what is behavior definition? A business object behavior definition, or simply called behavior definition, is an ABAP repository object. Are you understanding? ABAP repository object, just like classes, tables, classes, function modules, programs, they are all ABAP repository objects, right? All of these things are ABAP repository object. They live in ABAP repository. SCAT transaction is where you create them. Similarly, a behavior definition is also an ABAP repository object. What is the purpose of it? This behavior definition determines, in short form, I will write BDEF, guys. I hope you all will understand. BDEF means behavior definition. What is the job of this guy? Determines the behavior of an business object in context of RESTful ABAP programming. In layman terms, in simple words, what are all the different operations our BO can do? Like, can our BO do create? Can it do update? Can it do delete? Yeah. What are all the different things it can do? That is what we will put here as part of behavior definition. So that now remember, very important step. Sometimes your manager asks you to create a Fiori app which only can do create. So in the last time, I mean, for example, if you don't want to do update and delete, you may need to restrict that functionality. Where do you control that? That control comes with behavior definition. In the behavior definition, you will say, hey, I only want create function for my business object. I don't want everything. Okay, so that's where the behavior comes into picture. Now, how it is created? This is created using BDL syntax, behavior definition language, and comprises modeling capability aspect of BO node. For example, crude actions lock between, etc. So this is written in behavior definition language. There's a new syntax altogether. It has nothing to do with ABAP programming syntax. It's a completely new syntax which SAP introduced for behavior definition language. You need to use that to create and define your behavior definition. Okay. Now, next very important point, a single behavior definition. Always look at this word here. Always refers to a CDS model. Always refers to a CDS view, CDS model. This reference results from the name equality. Okay, this reference comes from name equality with root entity, which means your CDS view name will be equal to your behavior definition name. Which means, as you can clearly see, for one CDS you can only create one, maximum one behavior definition. You cannot create multiple for a root entity. Okay, this means you will have only at max one behavior definition which may exist for CDS. So how do you represent that in a UML notation? So if I want to represent, so you see this is my CDS view. I will call it as a root because this is going to represent my business object. In context of RESTful programming, this is called a business object, and this is marked by a root keyword in CDS. I will show you that in a second. And then you will have something called a behavior definition. Yeah, BDEF. Now, if you really look at the relationship, it is definitely 1:0:1. So either a CDS view will have no behavior definition, and if at all there is one behavior definition, it's only maximum one which exists. Okay. Now this CDS view can have multiple child CDS view. In our case also we had multiple child CDS view, right? We saw them. So there was agency, there was currency, there was customer. Those were multiple child CDS view. Yeah, CDS child views. Okay, child entities in a business object is a tree data structure. Suppose you want to design an application where you want to handle transaction capability for sales order header and line item. So of course you will create two views, and the header will be the root view and the line item will be the child view. So how many child view a CDS root view can have? Multiple. So it's a 1 to n relationship which we have it here, right? It can have either 0 or multiple. So I would say 0 to n. So one parent can have multiple childs. One parent CDS view, one root CDS view can have multiple childs. That's possible. Now coming to behavior definition. So this is just a definition. Definition says what are all you can do. Okay, what are all you can do, but it doesn't mean everything is a magic. It won't do it everything automatic. You got to write the logic for that. Okay. Now there are two possibilities of implementation, behavior implementation. We discussed that interview question. Implementation. There are two possibility for implementation: managed implementation and unmanaged implementation. In managed implementation, the behavior implementation is optional. Okay, because in case of managed scenario, framework will take care of implementation, basic implementation. So this is optional. In this case, it's optional. You can skip creating implementation, but in unmanaged scenario, this is mandatory, because you have to give the code to the application. You have to tell the system, the framework, what is the code to create, read, update, delete data. So this is how you decide mandatory and non-mandatory. Okay, mandatory and non-mandatory. So that is what in the implementation we will do. So now that's your implementation. So now you can have multiple implementations for a single definition. So it's 1:2, 1:2. And so in case of unmanaged scenario, I would say it's minimum one, because you must have to create it. Okay. Now this implementation, where it is coded, we are saying implementation. Whenever it comes to implementation, means there is a code. Where do you write this code actually? So we will write this code, whatever implementation we're going to do. This code will be written in something called behavior pool. Okay. What is it called? It's called behavior pool. It's called behavior. The code is written in behavior pool, which is nothing but pool of local classes inside a global class. मजा आया कि नहीं आया? Everybody, are you clear? Yesterday we learned a concept of local classes, local types. This is where it is now used in context of ABAP RESTful programming model. So all those local class learning which we did yesterday, they are actually used practically in the RESTful programming model. So the concept of OOPS ABAP they've used beautifully with RESTful programming. So you can have multiple classes, which is so called behavior pools, in a more complex manner, but in simple words I would say they're pool of local classes inside one single global class. That's why it's multiple. You can write multiple local classes, and these multiple local classes contains different implementation. Let's say for create method, one implementation. For, so you remember, multiple classes with small number of methods. So the best utilization of local class concept, or so-called behavior pools, is what is being done. So within one single global class we will define multiple local classes, and those local classes will have multiple and or one or many methods, and those methods will then contain the entire logic. So here you see this global class is acting as a container for all your local classes, and those local classes will have methods where you will have implementation of create, read, update, and delete. Now, so this is the complete design time part, how you will be designing. But when you are writing the code, what happens when you run the code? So that's called the runtime behavior. At runtime, how it works at runtime. So let's take an example. In typical ABAP application, when you write, what happens in an ABAP application where you're writing create, read, update. So this is your dialog program, screen program, whatever you call it, where you may have an ALV. Now then you will have your, of course, ABAP program, your application logic in the same ABAP program, your module pool, whatever you're creating. And this will have something called internal table, right? You will hold an internal table here. And once user hit the save button, at that point of time, you may call some function modules, and you hand over the data to these function modules, and then this function module will persist the data in the database. So this is what calls maybe insert, update, delete, and that persists the data in the database. Isn't this the flow of any ABAP program? Anyone? Have you ever developed any application, dialog program application? This is isn't the flow? Yes, this is the flow. So this is how we build ABAP programs till many years by now. We have a screen, a UI where you are doing some editing. So now tell me one question. I open a transaction, any transaction, maybe just to showcase you a little more interactive way. I'll just go to my above system, which I have it here, and just show you opening any transaction code, any transaction code. You can just use it. For example, I'll just go inside, say VA01. Now when I go to VA01, if I'm entering data here, do you think this data which I entered got saved? Anyone? Do you think this data got saved in DB by now? Do you think when I press enter, is this data getting got saved already in the database? No, it did not. It did not. Where is this data which I entered on the last screen is kept? Where is the data kept? Exactly. They are kept in the variables of the
Oh,
program, right? They are kept in the variables of the program.
oh,
They are kept inside the buffers. We call them buffers, right? So all of that will be stored here in the application logic in internal table or your variables in the program. And from there you give it to function modules or classes whatsoever you're using, or you can use direct DML statements to database, and that's what propagates your data to the ultimate database. So this is the entire flow of any natural simple ABAP program. On the same following the same behavior. Now in this case, this job what you see here will be managed by framework. So let me highlight what will be taken care by framework. So what you need to do is you need to just write the application logic, and propagating this application logic to the database will be managed by the framework. So your framework will take care of these activities. In case of managed scenario, framework will also develop this particular module. But in case of unmanaged scenario, you have to give the logic to insert, update, delete. So in case of unmanaged scenario which we are looking at, this part will be managed by us. We will manage it in an unmanaged scenario, and the framework will also have all the necessary logic to fill the buffer. When user is writing the data on the UI, it will automatically fill the buffer. It will keep the data in the buffer, all that it will do. And finally this data will be, before it is saved, it is coming to our module. In unmanaged scenario, we are writing the code to insert. Okay, framework won't insert, we will write the code. So here this data will be available to us. So whatever data comes from the Fiori UI will be kept in the buffer, and that data will be given to us. We can further manipulate the data, validate the data, and then only we will decide to insert data to database. So insertion also will be done finally by the framework, by this RESTful ABAP framework. We will not do that, but we will just tell ABAP framework, hey ABAP framework, I'm done with my activity. Now comes to the question, very important question. Suppose you're creating this sales order. Did you ever give the sales order ID yourself? So when I save a sales order, did I ever give sales order ID myself? No, right? Then how come the sales order number got generated? Exactly. Number range. System creates the primary key of my data automatically. Are you clear? Are you clear, guys? System creates primary key of our data record automatically, right? But now let's take a case. There is a UI, user entering the data on the UI. And now while user entering the data on the UI, what do you think? Is the primary key generated? When user entering data here on the UI, is the primary key generated already? Is the primary key? No, right? So when your application buffer is containing data, it needs to know what is the primary key of the record which you are editing, creating, updating. So what it does, the RESTful ABAP framework, it automatically assigns a temporary primary key. Okay. So when we work with behavior implementation in the application buffer, system automatically creates a temporary primary key which is known as content ID, also represented using percentage CID. Is this clear, everybody? What is percentage CID? Because I will be showcasing this in the code. At that time, you should not confuse what is percentage CID. This is a system generated, compiler generated property. It's a compiler generated primary key of the temporary record which is in the buffer. Okay, which is in the buffer. So this is very important to understand that there is a temporary key in context of business object which is stored. So how the overall processing happens in RESTful programming is you will have something, you will have three steps in a RESTful programming. So you will have three different steps here. The first step is called transaction phase. So this is the overall runtime of a business object. So there's a transaction. This is an interview question. Transaction phase. The transaction phase then will have the transaction buffer. Just like your internal table system will automatically create structures behind the scene, you don't have to do that. And then you will have save sequence. And this is what writes data to finally HANA DB. Okay. So this is how the overall big picture of your business object runtime works, how the business object works at runtime. So you'll have three steps: transaction phase, transaction buffer, and save sequence. These are all the three steps. Now the transaction phase, what is transaction phase? Transaction phase is nothing but, or it's also known as interaction phase or transaction phase. Then your transaction buffer, like your internal table system, will automatically create a lot of variables where it keeps all the data which user is currently editing, writing, changing, where it needs to be persisted, because we are working with RESTful programming model. In RESTful programming model, you don't have a session persisting in the backend. Whatever you're doing here, whatever you do, let's say create a record or update a record or delete a record, whatever you're doing here, there is no session in the backend like SAP GUI. It's a request response architecture. Request comes, response goes out. So system needs to store the data temporarily somewhere to know what data changes you are doing on the screen. Yeah. So interaction phase is nothing but customer, your consumer calls a business object operation. Let's say your end user go and hit the edit button, or your end user hit a select an item to read the data, or your end user hit a create button. Now when user hit that button, when user is performing a business object change or read operation, an object gets created automatically. Okay, an object gets created, and this object contains a transactional buffer, and that contains all the data which is not yet saved in the database. Remember in the VA01 just now, I was typing some data, maybe let's say material one, whatever I'm typing. So this data which I'm typing, it's is still kept in the buffer, in the variables of your program. They are not yet saved to the database. Okay, so whatever items you're writing, let's say mat one, whatever ship to party, sold to party you're writing. Okay, you're writing ship to party, you're writing sold to party. Yeah, all this what you're writing, this is all kept in variables, internal variables. This is not yet persisted to database. The persistence happens when you save button, right? When you do save. So these are two things which happens during the user is working with your application, using your user is using your application. Interaction phase, user say read data, user say create button, user hits create button, user say hits edit button. That point of time, that's an interaction phase. During this phase, all the data will be read from database or from the screen, and it will be kept inside a transaction buffer. And this transaction buffer always requires a BO regardless of how you are implementing, whether using managed scenario, unmanaged scenario, this will always be there. In this, you can factually find the data. All your data which user entering on the UI will be kept in this transaction buffer during interaction phase. Now, in the next step, user hit the save button. So let's say user does an edit and hit the save button. So at that point of time, all the changes which are there in the transaction buffer, these changes finally needs to send to HANA DB. And that's your save sequence. So as you can see, save sequence is the bridge between the temporary data which is edited or created by user and the HANA DB, which is actual persistence. So save sequence, after all the changes are done, user wants to now save the data. At that point of time, the save sequence comes into picture. In the save sequence, you will be writing the methods which will then insert this data to HANA DB. So let's go ahead and now try to implement a behavior definition and behavior implementation to see how can this we can achieve the create, read, update, and delete. So this whole concept is called business object runtime. Okay, so now it's enough of theory. So it's time to go back and let's add transaction capability to our business object. So I will come back and we will go to our CDS view. Remember the very important step, you have to have a uh, root keyword marked for your CDS model so that system can understand and consider it as a business object. So I'm going to go back and you will see here our, where is our CDS view go? Yeah, this one, unmanaged scenario for travel. Naming convention helps me a lot. Double click just to open that, the one which we created. I just close other stuff. This is our CDS view, but right now I am not using root keyword. You see, it's not marked as a business object at this point of time. So Ramana, we will try sales order header and items in maybe in unmanaged scenario. Okay, so we'll do that also, Ramana. Don't worry, I will show you some more scenarios. Okay, this is not the only scenario we will be doing. We'll be doing more scenario where we'll also have order and order items. Okay, we'll do that. Now, so this is my business object. This is my CDS view, and I need to make sure that this also treat it as my business object. So right now I'm not marking it, but you remember just about a minute ago I told it is mandatory. It is mandatory to mark a root. If you want to implement behavior definition and implementation, it is mandatory that your CDS view must be marked as a root. I'm not doing, let's see what happens. I try to directly create definition. So go back to CDS, right click and say please create a definition for me. So right click and choose here service new behavior definition. You see this one, just choose that and you see it creates just like an ABAP object, any other ABAP program or report. This is also a repository object. And look at here the name. Can you change this name? Can you change? It's grayed out. Are you clear? What does it mean? It is grayed out. What does the gray out means? Are you clear? You cannot change it. What does it mean? It's grayed out. Why? What does it mean? It's a one-to-one relationship between CDS view and your behavior definition. You, for one CDS view, only one behavior definition is allowed. Clear, everybody? Because the name is always the same. They share the same name. Okay. Now you also decide what type of implementation you want to do, managed or unmanaged. I say I want to do unmanaged. I say next. And now you see the error. See the error. It says it's not a root entity, which means system is unable to identify who is your business object. Who do you think is the root node of your tree? See, a tree does not exist without having a root node. Tree will only exist if you have a root node. The tree can only start if you have a root node, otherwise tree cannot start. So if you first have to bring the root node. Without the root node, there's no meaning. So that is something your projection CDS view, probably in our case, it's a travel CDS view, which is going to represent the root node of the business object. So let's go back. I just had here root. That's all you need to do. And now this represents the root of my business object tree. And this will be now treated as a business object itself in RESTful ABAP programming model. So this CDS view name will also now we treat it as a business object, and this business object will persist all the data. This will have all the transaction buffer, so all your transaction buffer will be of this type actually. Okay, this is the type, data type, which it will use now to define all the transaction buffer. Now I will also go ahead and quickly do a couple of more changes. I don't want travel ID to display on the detail screen, so I say bye bye to this, and I want this one on the identification on position number 10, customer on position number 20, and then we will also add more stuff. Let's say begin date, which is also important step because we're planning to create data next step. So to create data, it is important that we put all these properties. Yeah, then we will put this as 50, we will put this as 60, we'll put it as 70, and we will put it as 80. This one will put it as 90. So we have added identification properties. You see identification properties, so that on the next screen now you see all this data, and we should be able to create also the record by passing these begin date, end date, and stuff like that. The next important thing, we need to also mark currency code, okay, as a currency. So how do you do that? So you see, say that booking fee is referring to semantic matching. So otherwise we could have do move corresponding, but since the names are not matching, we have to map data manually right now. Customer ID, description, end date, status, and price. So we are mapping this. Awesome. That's your map data method, which is mapping the data, and it's going to return back the data to you after mapping. So now we call the map data. But from this field symbol, in this field symbol, still if you observe, you have this content ID and stuff like that. It is not exactly the CDS view structure. You see a lot of these things are there. So we need to now also send this field symbol data to this map data, provided that only whatever data is available in this, only that will be sent, because that's of type CDS and this is of type entities structure which BO gives you. So that also we can do it. So let me show you the quick ABAP code here. So we need to finally bring data here to send to the BAPI, and I say map data method, I will call it. Yeah, and generate the signature. And in this, when we want to pass the data, we use this field symbol with corresponding movement. So from field symbol, the data will go there to the function map data function. The map data function maps this data and return back this data for the BAPI. We pass this data to the BAPI. BAPI returns back the output. The travel output comes up, and we take this data and we also take messages. It may so happen that you passed wrong data, so your creation failed. Yeah, it is possible that your creation for travel failed because you passed wrong data. So in that case, your messages will come. Okay, all your messages will come. So immediately after this, you can check if the message is initial, else, and if. So basically error handling. If the messages are initial, guys, congratulations, you have successfully saved the data, and now travel ID would have got created by now. So now it's time to return the response back. You remember? So we took the input, we got the input in entities, we took this input, we map the data to the required BAPI structure, we call the BAPI to create the data. The BAPI will create the data in database and generates a new travel ID for us. But remember, this is not yet permanently saved in database. Temporarily, if I do rollback, the data can be rolled back from the database, but if I do a commit, it will be committed. And if you not write commit, it's an auto commit. Okay, if you not write commit in save sequence below, it's an auto commit. Okay, that's also will happen. But wait, let's come back and complete this. So if LT message is initial, which means my data is created, so I'm going to insert value, and I'm going to prepare my response back. So I will say my, so I have to also tell the framework, hey, this is the instance I saved it just now. So I need to tell my framework, hey framework, I have just saved this particular instance. So instance ID, basically the temporary primary key, the actual newly created primary key also now we will put it. So that's your travel ID, and that is generated now in this output structure. So you will ideally get a travel ID. If the messages are empty, the travel ID got created. And the third thing which you will pass is these two things into table. Your oops. So these two things. So your primary key finally got generated into table mapped your CDS name. So this is your response back to the framework. You're sending response back to the framework. Why it's giving this error? So content ID, travel ID. Just do a check. Yeah, it's travel ID into this map table. Finally, you're sending it. Else, if there are messages, boss, there is something wrong, we cannot save this data. There has to be, we need to now kill the flow of the program, and we need to tell the user, hey, there is something wrong. Okay, and we need to kill the program. System should never reach to save sequence in that case. If by chance it reach to save sequence, it will become an auto commit. So we need to terminate the program here itself, telling the system, hey, please return back from here only, don't go to save sequence, you are still in a transaction buffer. So go back. So I just loop over all the messages which has come from the BAPI, transporting no fields, where message type, why it's giving this error, LT messages, loop at LT messages, transporting no fields, where message type is error. If there is really an error message, please tell me. Or if the message type is abort, did it abort by any chance? Did it cause a dump in the system behind the scene? If this is the case, then I need to fill another table which will go in the response, and that response table will contain your message which will be shown to the Fiori UI. So we'll just fill our response table called field key, and here we again send the temporary content ID. So this is all managed by content ID. This is how the framework will know which record I gave to you and which record you gave me back. Okay, so how does the framework know which instance of the data I gave you, which instance of data you are editing? So it's always by content ID. So the framework doesn't know anything. It just treat your data agnostically, but what it understand is this CID which it has created and edited it. So you need to send back this CID to the framework, so that framework will know, okay, this was the record I gave you, this is the record you giving me back. What happened to this record? Okay, it failed, no problem, I will inform the Fiori. So that's what the framework is doing with the help of content ID. Into table failed hyphen. So this is a return, another return, where I'm returning back what has failed back to the system, and then we call a return statement. So system will never ever reach to save sequence. It will return back from here itself. Okay, now user correct the data, again fire the save button, this content ID won't change. Okay, user correct the data, again fire, this content ID remains the same, because this is your transaction, kind of a transaction ID which remains as long as transaction is not completed, it remains in the buffer. Okay, in the transaction buffer. That's why it's called content ID. I'm going to save this and let me activate, and let's expect something to happen, either a dump or at least it should run. Let me try. I'm going to go back and reload our Fiori application. Oh wow, what a scenario. End-to-end creation using ABAP RESTful programming model. Let's click on create button. We'll choose agency number. We choose customer number. We choose travel date, today's date. Travel end date is 31st. Booking fees is 250 US dollars. Total amount of the price was 1500 US dollars. Description of the travel was vacation. Travel status is new or planned. Okay, it's planned. Click on save button. Object seems to be created. Last time what was the count? 4135. Let's see. I hit the go button. It is still 4135, which means something is wrong. It is not triggering our code. Even in fact, I'm surprised it's not hitting our method also, which means there is something wrong. Is there something we are missing? Did we activated everything? Did I activate this guy? Yeah, it's saying this class name to implement. I have activated everything. Why it's not hitting our breakpoint? It must hit our breakpoint to let us see the data being created in the system. Let me just try again. Save button. Exception was read. I think now it's hitting our logic. Let's give a try. I'm gonna put up a breakpoint again. Yeah, I put up a breakpoint. Let me come back and enter agency ID. Let me enter customer number. Travel date, today's date. Travel end date is 30th. Booking fees is 250 US dollars. 5,000 is the total amount of travel. Vacation, planned travel. Click on save button. Object seems to be created. Still the count is 4135. Let me click on go button. Count is not changing, which means my record is not yet created. There's something wrong, guys. Let's see the travel number. What's the maximum travel number you have? 4136 is the one, and that was not our record. You see, it is description was vacation for us. We didn't give vacation to USA. Okay, so there's something wrong. It's not hitting my breakpoint, neither it's reaching there. Can we also just try one more times in the save sequence, adding the commit method? Let me just try. Maybe that could be the reason. So we'll also just try this. Maybe it's not doing an auto commit. Maybe we have to write the BAPI commit. So DMO flight travel save is what I need to call. This is kind of a commit work. We're calling this save activate, and let's try now. Unfortunately, my debugger is not hitting. If my debugger would have hit, then it would have been more easy to observe the sequence of save. Okay, but anyway, let's try. I will also have to cross check why it's not hitting my debugger. At least an exception has come that has given me some confidence that yes, my logic probably triggering. So last time an exception came, that only comes when you do wrong, something wrong in the system. Let's try one more time. Just come back. 7002, remember 7002 for customer number 27. So 7002 customer number 27, and I will say 500 US dollar. Price is 5,000. Maja Avigio. This is the description uniquely identifying our record actually to just cross check. P save button says object created. Never saying not created, but let's try. So now, oh wow, War 136, amazing, awesome, fantastic, fantastic, fabulous, guys. 4135 to 4136. Let's do a sorting and try to see if our record is available at 4136. We can also search 4137 is the number. And maja avi gyo. There you go. You can see now we have got our record persisted in the database. It was just a problem of this save. But another question comes, why my debugger not hitting? I may have to check some settings for that. Don't worry, I will check that offline. But at least you can see the most recent record which I've inserted, it's got created in the system. That's the unmanaged scenario for your create implementation of BO with RESTful ABAP programming model. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. What about if I have line item table? Can I also insert data in a table? Yes, you can do that. We have that scenario planned in our course. I will show you that. I will show you that in coming days. Okay. Time for more questions one by one, please. This is phenomenal. This is the first step towards RESTful ABAP programming model. It is a straight single entity. You are right. Yes, please.
So yesterday we have seen one CDS view, right? We
Sorry.
have created yesterday we have created one CDS view, right?
Right.
With all the annotations.
Yes.
List app list application page, right? So can can we use the same CDS view for transaction also? Like suppose we have different scenarios, like analytical application also there, and the transaction app is also there.
Mhm.
Can we use same scenario, same CDS view, or we have to create a different CDS view?
You can use same CDS view for both analytic scenarios and also for non-analytic scenarios. It is possible, but the only challenge for analytic scenario with ABAP own cloud today is that annotation for aggregation is not supported. That's a challenge. So
Okay.
analytics will get a back setback because you need that annotations to sum up. Analytics is what? You need to sum up total sales per product category, right? So it's about total, average, mean, max. That's analytics. So there, those annotation like default aggregation annotation is important. Yesterday, when I put default aggregation annotation, it did not work. That was a limitation. So in this, and also there are certain limitations which are only because we are using ABAP trial. It's a trial to practice and learn. But when you go to your company productive ABAP on cloud environment, when your company buys ABAP on cloud environment for demonstration, for real usage, some of these limitations will go away. And also it is evolving. In coming days, they may introduce some new syntax, new features, which will also help us to do little bit more with ABAP. So it's just the beginning of ABAP on cloud. And of course, in coming days, you will see lot more new developments will happen from SAP and you'll be able to do more.
Okay. So yesterday we have added selection fields, right? Like using annotations, we have created some selection fields.
Mhm. Yes.
So and those selection fields we added in consumption view.
There's only one view. This you can call this as consumption view. You can call this as your root view. You can call this as your BO view. You can call this as a projection view. All of this is only one.
Yeah. So
And this
suppose
is
in
where
case
only
of
we added the root. Nowhere else. We
yeah.
added the root here only. All annotations are also here. The root is also here. And for this root only, today we created this behavior definition here. You can see this one is exactly matching the same name. It's always one-to-one relationship between the root view and a behavior definition.
Yeah, fine. So suppose we have a hierarchy of views, like suppose base, composite, and consumption view,
Mhm. Hierarchical
base
views
and
like
then composite and consumption view. And suppose no, not hierarchical view. I'm saying base, composite, and consumption view. This hierarchy I'm saying. Okay.
okay.
So in that case, if we add the selection field at consumption view level, will that selection, that particular input will be pushed down to composite and base view also, or will it be filtered at only consumption view level?
So if you want to suppose get a field like country in as part of your selection, don't worry, you can get it. Suppose I want to get customer country and I want to get it in search, no problem. Use your association and then you can just check the country as country and then add this also as part of your selection field, not a problem. So add this as selection field 40, 30, whatever. That's all. The country will also, this one is coming from your inner child views. So this is a customer child view. From there it's coming in country. So now if I come back and I will refresh, you will see also the country will come here. So I can search all the orders of a certain country customers and you see
Uh,
country have come.
yes, yes, sir. No, my question is, see, we have base, composite, and consumption view. we have created selection fields on consumption view level. Okay.
Yes.
Hello. So that selection scheme will apply only at consumption view level, or that selection will also push down to composite and base view level also. Suppose suppose we have sales order header table. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
sales order header table having the base view, composite view, and also consumption view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at consumption view level, I have created selection fields, and I have given some input at selection field level. Okay, so that will apply on consumption view level. But will it be pushed down to composite and base view level also, or the whole sales orders will be fetched at composite and base view level?
It will not push down to the child entities or child views or your views with which you compose the main view. It will not push to them.
Okay, okay. Then how come we the performance will be like checked? Because composite view will have all the sales orders, even though we applied filter at top level. Composite and the base view will have all the sales orders, right? So that will hit the performance, right?
It will not, because user interface will never load all the sales orders in one go. User interface will only load the sales orders, let's say top 100. So though you may see here 4136 record, do you think it has loaded all 4000 records here? No, we are using RESTful ABAP. So in the REST programming, what happens is when you load the application, when you hit the go button, watch out what happens when you say go, it loads only the top 100 records first. So when you go here, you see system is loading only the first 50 or 100. See top 50, 25 records only it's loading. So how come the performance will hit? It's just getting 25 records from HANA and application layer on the UI. Now user will not feel it. Why? Because when users scroll down, watch out what happens when I scroll down. See this dot 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 you saw, and now it made automatically next call to tell the system, please skip the first 25 and get me the next 25. So performance will never hit in these cases because we are using REST based architecture. We are not loading all the data on the UI from the backend and the database in one go. You may have billions of sales orders in database table. We never load all billion sales order. We only load data chunk by chunk. Like YouTube. When YouTube, you have a video of 2 hours. YouTube doesn't ask you to wait for 2 hours to load the whole video. The moment YouTube receives the first packet of 2 minutes of playback, it will start playing the video. By the time you watch the first 2 minutes of video, the next 2 minutes or next 5 minutes of playback is received at runtime. So that is called pagination concept, or it's also known as packet concept. So using the packet or pagination, you can see the data is loaded on timely basis on the UI rather than loading all the data in one shot. So if I scroll down for
Okay.
the next request will also go, you see next request, the
Yeah.
user will never see a big performance lag ever on the UI side, because user work with UI, they don't work with your CDS views directly. They never hit
Can
CDS views.
can we see any execution or plan with for the serious views? So
Yes,
there, I think we can see right how the entries will be fetched for at each view level.
correct. So please stay tuned. Have you subscribed on our YouTube channel?
Yes, yes,
Have you hit the bell icon on the YouTube?
yes, yes. I have subscribed.
Then
Yes.
you just watch for another a week or so. I will just quickly show you what are you looking. I know what are you looking for. I'll just share my channel, and this is our channel on YouTube, and go to my studio where I'll show you all the videos which I've uploaded. And you can see this was also a question of all the students from ABAP on HANA class. So that's why I listened to your feedback and I already prepared for it. So I have received multiple times this question. How can I do performance analysis for CDS view? How can I do the trace of how the CDS execution is happening? You see, measure the performance of CDS views, static dependencies, measure at runtime dependencies with runtime performance trace using ST05, and also finding the annotations which meets to the KPI quality of CDS views. Overall, what exactly happens behind the scene when a CDS view runs? what queries are made, how they are made, what is plan visualizer, how do you check the performance of each query, how do you see the breakdown, a graphical view of query performance when the CDS view execution takes place. All three are currently private. I'm just waiting for pull. More pull will come. These videos will be live on the YouTube.
Okay, so any other option we can push down the inputs at base view level?
Input, push down the input at base view level. You can use parameters also with CDS view. Please subscribe my ABAP on HANA training to understand more about CDS view concept in general, because that's where we have covered CDS view about in 6 to 7 session of more than 20-25 hours of training dedicatedly on CDS view. So I think probably you are weaker on CDS basic concepts. Though I covered in this course little bit of CDS basics, but you really need to go and subscribe my ABAP on HANA training to understand CDS more in detail, where there are parameterized CDS views to push down this logic to the deep level in the DB.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, so last week also we released a couple of videos on CDS. So you see there was one video was on CDS view on S4. How do you identify which are all the CDS views provided by SAP directly to you in S4 HANA? So you can go and explore this video. It's already live, 24th November last week. We have released it. So you can always go and check here this video. I'll just give you the link to those who are working on S4. You can actually check this, where to find the CDS views related to S4. Okay. How do we decide if we do RESTful or should we create normal Fury app to give crude operation? So you should go Puja with RESTful most probably, because RESTful is less effort. Effort wise it is less, and the look wise it looks standard. So go with RESTful ABAP programming model. And good news is those who are on SAP S4 HANA on premise 1909, you can also practice whatever I'm teaching here. This is not just for ABAP on cloud. Whatever I'm teaching here, it's not, don't you think that it's only work in cloud system. No, whatever code I did here exactly replicate in your own premise system. If you are on SAP S4 HANA 1909, this all what you're learning is applicable for on premise also, because SAP has released this RESTful ABAP programming model. This is the future. Those who have attended my ABAP on HANA course with BOPF CDS integration, that is also obsolete now. This is the future. This is the way to code and the work with RESTful ABAP programming model. If you want to create Fury app, this is the standard way forward. Okay. So the aggregation probably will work, yes, in OP system, Puja. Unfortunately, today we are not able to upgrade our system, the system which we have. We are not able to upgrade to 1909. There is a problem going on in SAP's software update manager. We are working on it with the basis team. The moment it is resolved, we will also upgrade to 1909. So that time, hopefully, I will showcase you if we can also use the aggregation annotation which you're planning to use yesterday here. Okay, we'll do that. Cool. All right. So with that, I hope I was able to answer some of the questions. You saw the first glimpse of today transactional capability we just create. In the next class, we will talk about update, delete, and also actions. Somebody was asking yesterday about actions. How do we do actions, custom actions if I want to achieve? How can we do that? We will also learn that in the next class. Please stay tuned. Have a nice day and goodbye.
Question.
Yes, Sushant.
So you have this corresponding hash statement, right? So
Okay.
is that specific?
No, 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 that's not a web. Okay, see this whole thing, Sushant, you can also do something in this way. Let me show you. So you can also do move corresponding this field symbol to some structure, and this some structure, then you can pass here ls demo. Okay, so now I can just say ls demo, type my CDS name. So what is my CDS name? It's this guy. So what I did is I first moved data from my field symbol to this ls demo, and then from this ls demo to my im data to map data. So this is the extra statement I have to write, and this is an extra variable I need to declare. Okay, in new ABAP syntax from NetWeaver 7.4, they have introduced different varieties of expressions, value expression, hash, different expressions with which I don't need to do this guy extra, not needed. This guy extra is there, I don't need it. I can say bye bye, and I can also say bye bye, and I can also say bye bye, and I can just say corresponding hash. It will automatically do a move corresponding from my field symbol to the incoming structure which the map data is receiving. So you see, it simplifies my code the way I write. So you can go and write the old technique also, or you can use this new technique also. It's your choice. This is a new syntax in ABAP.
Okay, thank
I
you. Thank you.
hope that answered. Yeah. Cool then, guys. I will catch you up next weekend and we will learn about update, delete, and action scenarios. And then we will move to manage scenario. Manage scenario is very interesting. You will love that. And we will take some more complex ones where we will create deep entities in terms of tables also, line item tables also we will be creating there. You will get more insights about RESTful ABAP programming. Thank you so much as always and catch you up.